And joining us now from New York City is Fred Teng. He's the president of the America China Public Affairs Institute. That's an independent research organization specializing in U.S. China affairs. Fred, welcome back to the show.
Hello, Elaine. How are you?
How do you see the issue of Chinese mainland tourists in Hong Kong being resolved? What do you think needs to happen here?
You mean the tourist situation or the political reform situation?
Let's start with the tourist situation.
Well, I think that Hong Kong is still one of the favorite tourism spots for Chinese mainland tourists because the proximity, it's got a lot of goods to buy and so forth. Understandably, there's a small segment of people might not because of the price and because of the supply demand, they're a little bit disgruntled and then they hold these protests. But by and large, these are small protests. Most of the Hong Kong people really welcome mainland tourists coming to Hong Kong.
You know, this is an issue, as we heard in our report, that's been put forth before the National People's Congress by Hong Kong's chief executive. So what do you think is likely to come of it?
Well, I think maybe there might be some adjustment in terms of the number of tourists coming into Hong Kong, just to ease the situation a little bit. But overall, long term, I don't think the trend will be continue. People should be free to travel to each other's place, and I think Hong Kong will be a good place for people to go. But in the meantime, they also have to making sure the supply, in terms of supply of goods in Hong Kong, will be increasing, so they will not be run out of supply of goods.
And we mentioned this earlier, the issue of universal suffrage or electoral reform in Hong Kong. For those who have just been tuning into this, what is at the heart of this debate, and what are some of the positives and negatives of electoral reform?
Well, the debate, we know because of the protests from last year's Occupy Central, basically by 2017, the Hong Kong government and the central government want to have one person, one vote, that they can vote for the chief executive. Every country, every place have a very unique system of voting. In the United States, we vote for president by electoral college, so each state winner takes all. In UK and Israel, you vote for the political party, but Hong Kong, you can actually pick the person. The center of contention was about who will be the candidate, the final candidate, the 2 or 3 candidates for people to vote for. And Hong Kong system is through a functional constituency, which is pretty much encompasses all walks of life of Hong Kong's professional people, working people, religion, sports, etc., which we have to talk about in previous session. And I think that, but I'm pretty confident that this whole reform will be passing as the first stage. And if there's changes in the future, that will be for the future to slowly making amendments. But I hope, and I'm pretty confident that the legislature will pass this time.
And Fred, where are some of the tensions coming from regarding this issue? I mean, how much of it has to do with the economy, for instance?
Hong Kong's economy is doing pretty well. It's running another surplus, 15% over. They're looking at how to spend the money. Some of the money will be spent in compensating some of the vendors and merchants who will suffer through the Occupy Central movement. So that's really like a 6 months to a year of license fee waivers and so forth. A lot of money are going to the elderly and taking care of them and giving them more allowance. And also the taxpayer in terms of some sort of a refund. So overall, the economy is doing fine. Hong Kong is a very small place, but it's, you know, most of the revenue coming from real estate.
All right, Fred Teng, as always, we appreciate your insight. Thank you again so much for joining us from New York City.